Hello and welcome to The Weekly Yes, a podcast where two best friends talk about their joint mission to say yes to life. I am your host, Jara Skagfjord, and co-host is my bestie, the amazing Kristin Guerin. On today's episode, Kristin and I talk about dreaming big and asking for what you want. We talk about how rejection or redirection is a form of protection, and the possible consequences of faking needing your appendix removed. For today's Fast Facts, I wanted to let you know that this episode is very Jara heavy. This is actually very intentional because we were having some technical difficulty for the audio and the recording process in general as we were trying out a different platform. So today you'll be hearing me monologue quite a bit. Maybe I'm letting you know because I'm nervous about what you'll think of this self-obsessed woman who just goes on and on and on and won't let her friend get a word in edgewise. No, yeah, that's definitely it. I'm very worried today as I publish this episode about what you think of me, dear listener. That's just the truth. Thanks for listening, by the way. Love you. Anyway, I am gonna drop you straight into our conversation. Enjoy. Daylight savings has really been messing with me. I know it does a lot of people, but I feel like for the past couple of years, I've been like extra sensitive to it. And I don't fully know why. I wonder if it's maybe because I'm in Atlanta, like I'm further south than I've ever been. I was, of course, first in Iceland and then New York, and then now I'm in Atlanta. So the light and the sun is slightly different here. So each time there's been daylight savings in either direction, I've been like I've just been extremely sensitive to it. It's really messed me up. I think also another part of why I'm having a hard time sleeping is because I'm just recovering from last week. Like I was on set all week last week and we were there until very late. So I think my body went into the state of, we need to keep ourselves awake and alert until like very late. So now I'm trying to ask my body to go back to sleep at the normal time, and it's just, wait, what? Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm trying to rest and trying to do things and trying to come back to real life, and it's a bit of a struggle, but it's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's just a tiny bit of a struggle. I'm not having. Normally, I would have the post-show blues. Normally, I would have that. I would be sad that I'm no longer doing a thing that I enjoyed, but I'm not having that this time around, which is very interesting. And I'm not entirely sure why. It was just something that I clocked yesterday. I was like, what's interesting is that I'm just feeling very good. Even though I'm tired and I'm trying to catch up on sleep and rest and stuff, I'm not experiencing a total crash. I'm not experiencing a total crash of the experience or post-show blues of the experience, which is unusual.
That was a really big deal for a really long time for you. How long? Yeah. When was the last time you got them?
That is a very good question. Honestly, I think probably before the pandemic, because that was the last time I did like a show like that. I've only been doing like small gigs since the pandemic, and it you know what I'm also realizing? It usually just happened with theater.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Because I also noticed, okay, I mean, here's what my yes for the past week was. I think it's going to continue into next week. But my yes for the past week was saying yes to my dreams, right? One of them being just like being very present with what was happening, right? Like I am living the dream in many ways. Like I get to be on set and I'm working with really good, kind, ambitious, incredible people. And I'm having a great time. I'm laughing and I'm bonding and like all these things. And, so I was really, and it took, interestingly enough, it took a level of consciousness to allow myself to experience it fully, to allow myself to enjoy it, and to allow myself to really be present with it and not start to overthink. Just staying relaxed and staying present, because overthinking, like it takes you out of the present, essentially, right? So I was able to have a really good time and just really be, this is the thing that you've been asking for. So we're going to be present with it. So that's what I mean when I say I was saying yes to my dreams. And I was talking to this guy on set, and he had such a, I don't know what, it was something about him. He had such an interesting presence and he was genuinely interested in people. I saw him talk to a couple other people on set. I'm like, wow, everybody really opens up to this guy because he just genuinely wants to know, and he's super kind and safe. And I don't know how to, you have the same quality, Kristin, where people just open up.
That's very kind.
Just open up. Yeah. They're just like, let me tell you everything. And then he just tell you stuff. And that's the energy that he had. I was like, oh, I feel I have no issue talking to you about stuff. Anyway, so he was asking, so he asked me, oh, so you were mainly in the theater. So how does it feel being in the film and TV industry now? And I was talking about it for just a little bit. And I didn't realize this until I said it out loud to him in that moment. Is that what I'm realizing, and this is true, is that this particular project is revealing to me that all of the things that I love about theater, or a lot of the things that I love about the theater are available to me here.
Yeah.
Which is mainly community and collaboration. Because I really loved in the theater, I loved more the rehearsal process and going to rehearsal and meeting with the same group of people every day, and we're figuring out together and we're working on a thing together than I did performances. And honestly, my favorite part about when we were in performances was showing up to the performances. You know what I mean? Showing up to the theater. And you're saying hi to everybody, and you're just like I shared a room with a couple of other actors. We were just having a good time in the dressing room and just getting ready to get that whole, sure, I also love performing and I love standing on the stage. That's part of it, sure. But when I was doing projects where I didn't like the people, or where there was some kind of drama, or there was some kind of, or I wasn't bonding, or the collaboration was fraught for whatever reason, I wasn't having a good time. Being on stage and performing and doing the thing didn't make up for the lack of connection, collaboration, and community. Yeah, so that was just an interesting discovery. I was like, oh, I didn't know that until I just said that out loud to you. That because I was just so worried for a while that I'd made a mistake, I'd made a mistake to transition from theater into film and TV. But I am learning so many new things, and I'm having such a good time, and these people were just so incredible, and I had one of the best weeks of my entire life. And I'm not experiencing post-show blues. So I'm like, this is the best of both worlds right now. This is amazing.
That's beautiful. It makes me think of a couple things. First of which is our dear friend Laura. She used to say to us that the system doesn't know the difference between playing a role on the Broadway and playing a role in a rehearsal studio. And my Kabbalah teacher just said something very similar the other day, which was when you're when you're desiring a soulmate, or you're desiring a bunch of money, you're desiring extreme success in your career, whatever it might be, it means you're desiring, or you're connecting to some aspect of the universe, creator, God. If you're desiring a lot of money, you're not really desiring a lot of money. You're desiring support, or freedom, or abundance, and the ability to do whatever you want to do. If you're really desiring a soulmate connection, what are you really desiring? You're really desiring support. That's what I'm desiring. It's somebody to support me, and I can support them. You're desiring unconditional love. You're desiring patience. So does that have to look like what you think it looks like, if that's really what you're envisioning? And I love this idea of translating that back to the acting industry, where you and I were just speaking separately yesterday about the being interested in our whole life now, and our quality of life. And that might not look like striving for certain things that we used to strive for, or putting our bodies and our systems through certain things that we used to put ourselves through in order to have this outcome. For example, I want to live here. I don't want to live in New York anymore. I want to be able to audition in New York. I want to be able to audition and book a show and go back to New York and go do that show for a month or two. But I don't want to live there. I also love most about the industry. I love most about acting, the community. I love, as you said, rehearsals more than performances always. I love the rehearsal period. I love the creative collaboration. Can that look different than I think it looks? Can I achieve that? Can I connect to that aspect of God, that aspect of universe and pure love and light in other areas of my life, and through other means than being on the Broadway? I would also say the last show I did, which is probably the biggest show I've ever done, I was the most miserable I've ever been.
Yeah.
And it was because, as you just said, the environment wasn't great in the collaboration. I had the collaboration at the beginning and I loved it. And then it was gone and I didn't feel safe in the community and it wasn't a good experience. And that's the last time I did a play. And honestly, it took me years to heal from that, right? So it wasn't actually the success that I was desiring. I got the most success I ever got, but I was absolutely the least happy I've ever been. So can that look like, and I don't know, it can look like different things for me. It can look like creating new works here. It can look like, as you mentioned, film and television, which is easier to self-tape for. Theater still does want you in person a lot of the time. But can I do my craft, which I also love doing my craft? That's a part I haven't mentioned, right? I do also want to do my art form. And can I do it in a way that allows me to also enjoy a solid quality of life rather than giving up everything to once in a while maybe book something that maybe fulfills me, right? Clarifying what you actually want.
I'm also realizing that I don't want to live there anymore.
I didn't want to speak for you. I know.
Yeah. And it's a difficult realization and I think people that have had this weird love affair with New York City can probably relate. That I just completely fell in love with it, right? And that was the whole reason why I stayed in the U.S. It's because I was so utterly in love with New York City. I mean, not to say that I wouldn't go back, like I might, but I think one of the reasons why I don't feel it now, that I'm like, you know what, actually, I mean, it's definitely quality of life. Definitely quality of life. I was walking down the street this week with my dog, and for some reason, I started thinking in my head, what if this was New York City? What if I'd woken up this morning and I had taken the dog out and I was in New York City and I was like envisioning leaving the house and just like walking out in the street where there's so many people and so many cars and there's so much noise and pollution and everything stinks. And I was like, I don't know if I would want that for myself or my dog. And I also think quality of life is not just where you are or like how things feel or smell or like the things that have to do with your senses, but it's also the fact that I have now seen and experienced something that I want, something that feels good, and that I'm in community with people. I'm like, oh, I have now met people that I like, we're on the same page, like-minded people, and I'm having a good time with these people. I've made friends. So now I'm like, why would I? What is really pulling me? Because it's not the community anymore. It's not the community. It's not the literal place. And now it's no longer the art form of theater either, because I'm having such a good time with film and TV.
Right.
It's going well. And I'm like, I'm learning and I'm growing and I can feel that this is really good for me and it's good for my artist. Because I was like born into the theater and I was so comfortable with it. I'm like, yeah, I know how to do this. I don't fully know how to do the film and TV. And I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out what makes sense and what looks good. And it's just like a completely different medium. But that's also exciting to me, that I'm getting to experience different sides of myself and my artistry through this. And it's not to say that I've abandoned the theater completely. The theater will be there. It's not going anywhere. But I remember as a child when I was watching movies, I would picture myself in movies and in TV shows. But for some reason, I convinced myself that was too much, that I was too far-fetched, that I was too much. I'm too big, I'm too expressive, I'm too whatever. Everyone in movies and TV are more subdued or whatever. I convinced myself that I didn't fit, that it wasn't for me, and that it's not who I am. I'm not going to be able to do it. So even though it was definitely a part of my dream when I was little, as I went on in life, I just abandoned it. It was just on the side of the road. I'm like, oh, this is never going to happen. And then furthermore, I convinced myself that I didn't like it. I created like a whole amalgamation of things in my brain of convincing myself that this wasn't for me. So I think there's really something to what I just said earlier about saying yes to my dreams. And I remember seeing a lot of things around Pisces season that people were saying, dream really big, so big this Pisces season. Let the universe know what you want in the most ridiculous, far-fetched way that you could possibly imagine, which is what I've been doing. And it's been interesting. And I can feel anytime I say out loud things that I want, there is a voice inside of my head that's ridiculous. That's never going to happen. But it feels like I'm fighting myself or challenging myself these days and being like, no, like we made it this far and we never thought we would make it this far. So anything is possible.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that. It's crazy that we can do that to ourselves, right? That we can want something and then convince ourselves that we actually don't want it. But yeah, now's the time. And something that somebody said to me the other day was like, all you have to do is ask. You don't have to determine whether or not you get it. Trust. Do you know what I mean? Trust that the other side, trust that beyond our realm, things are being figured out. But it's not my responsibility to decide whether or not I receive a blessing. It's only my responsibility to ask for that blessing and then trust that if it's meant to come to me, it will.
Yeah. What did you say yes to last week?
I have been thinking a lot this week about protection. And speaking of asking for what you want and trusting that you'll receive it, I've been thinking a lot about how often I was protected from things. Like I wanted something so badly and I didn't get it. Right. And it was because if I had gotten that thing, it would have kept me from something even bigger that I wanted even more. Right. I was just thinking of this apartment I really wanted to move in the summer. I've wanted to move twice now. And I wanted to move last summer. And I was thinking about, just couldn't find a freaking apartment. Now I'm helping my brother find apartments and I'm finding them everywhere. I was like, what the hell is this about? Like, where were these apartments in Astoria under 2000 in the summer, right? It's possible that summer is also just for those who don't live in New York City, it is actually harder to find an apartment in New York in the summer and it's more expensive. So they literally probably didn't exist in the summer. However, that being said, I was being protected and I wasn't able to move. I said, thank God I wasn't able to move because I still have this really lovely, affordable apartment that I love so much that is easy to sublet out. I hope my landlord's not listening, but he doesn't mind that I sublet it. Well, that'd be so funny. This is how I get caught.
Hilarious. Your landlord is listening to the weekly yes.
It's really easy to sublet my apartment. And it's something that if I had gotten, I probably wouldn't be here. The timing worked out. It's just crazy the amount of things that have not come to me, the blessings that I've asked for that haven't come. And it's because I was being protected so that the bigger blessing could come to me. It was right around the corner. Yes, that's something I've just been reflecting on a lot.
It's also like you're saying, the whole trusting that this was something that I told myself a couple of days ago is like, what is meant for me will not pass me by.
100%.
And I think we had an episode about this. I think it was like episode 2 or something. It was like our first 3 episodes where we talk about that the universe knows better than you. It's like I had convinced myself so badly that film and TV was not for me that it wasn't even on my radar. It didn't even cross my mind that this was possible, that this was something that I could possibly pursue. I'd been an actor for like years and years, but I was just like, yep, I'm in the theater and this is where I'm going to be. And then something extreme had to happen, aka the pandemic, for me to even look in that general direction, So even though the pandemic actually put a halt on the biggest theater project that I had ever booked, and I was really disappointed, and I had to grieve that and mourn that I had this momentum, and I'd finally booked something that was going on tour and everything, and then the pandemic hit. But that global redirection, it was for a lot of people. So many people moved, changed careers. We moved from office to working from home, all kinds of things. So it was a redirection for the masses. But I think. But for a couple of years afterwards, and even after I'd moved to Atlanta, I was like, I wonder if they're still going to do it. I wonder if they're going to revisit this project. I still had it in the back of my mind. Yeah, and I'm like, and I'm so glad that they didn't revisit this project, that I wasn't called back to do this project and called on tour and everything, because I would be missing out on all of the incredible things. So yeah, so in that way, the universe knew better than me, like for sure.
Don't you wish though that you could have your future self come talk to you and be like, here's the hindsight, the 2020 hindsight that I have now. So this thing you're going through that you really want, it's all for the best. I did wind up doing we do these childhood wound healings or meditations or whatever it might look like pretty frequently. I went to go do one, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or so. And instead of going to my inner child, or I started going to my inner child and that was not working. I was like, this is not what this is about, is it? And they were like, nope. And then my older self wound up coming to me. I don't know that's something I do often, or I think she just in that moment I needed to see her to see I'll be okay.
One of my favorite exercises in The Artist's Way. There's a chapter where she says to write a letter from your, I think, 80-year-old self to where you are right now. I've done it a couple of times. I think I've done the child one as well, but this one, I don't know why, it's one of my favorite exercises. I always do it every time I do The Artist's Way. And I hit that chapter. I'm like, oh, I'm excited. I get to write a letter from my 80-year-old self again, because it's such a specific voice that comes through. It's so, first of all, it's so self-assured. It's so wise. It's so matter of fact. It's so free in the way that my 80-year-old expresses herself.
I have zero recollection of this exercise, and I've done The Artist's Way twice, or if not 3 times. So I've got to go find it and do it. Wow.
I highly recommend doing it because it's just so soothing for one's future anxiety.
Yeah. I love that.
Or one's issues with aging, one might also say.
Yes, that's actually why she came through. Thank you. I've got to go find that exercise and do it. Do you have an intention for the upcoming week, Jara?
Let's see. I was getting a lot of messages a couple of days ago, during the new moon in Pisces. I was pulling a couple of cards, and just the cards said, ask for what you want. And I'm like, okay. So I start doing that. I both write down in my journal, on the new moon, it's a really good time to set your intentions and make wishes and all kinds of things. And I just started saying a bunch of stuff out loud. I was asking for big things, and I was dreaming big and doing all these things. And then I felt like I was done. But as I stopped talking, I was like, something is missing. I was like, I feel like I missed something. So here's how I'm going to remedy that. Instead of continuing to talk or sitting here and spending time and energy thinking about the things that I want, what I'm going to do for the next few days, couple of weeks, anytime I see something, hear something, have a thought, whatever, about something that I want, I'm going to let you know. So, for example, I'm watching a TV show on Netflix, and I see a very specific scene on TV, and I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. This is the kind of scenes I want to do. These are the kind of roles I want to do. And then I was walking around my apartment because we're moving to another unit in our complex in a couple of months. And I'm looking around my apartment. I'm trying to imagine, because it's exactly the same unit. It's just mirrored, and it's an updated, renovated unit, but the floor plan is exactly the same. So I was walking around my apartment being like, okay, so what do I want to do when we move? Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to paint here. Maybe I want to, I'm imagining what I want the apartment to look like. But I didn't fully know. It didn't fully envision. I was like, I don't know if this makes sense, or whatever. I go for a walk with Remy at nighttime, and I walk past one apartment, and all of the lights inside of that apartment are on. So I'm looking into this apartment, and it's beautifully decorated. This person had just moved in, and she had wallpaper, and so I was literally able to walk past and see almost like a model home or whatever of the apartment that I'm about to move into. I was like, oh, this is what I want. So that's the thing that I'm doing these days. I'm just being very, the minute I see something that I want, I let them know. This is what I want. And I have never done anything like that. Not on this scale in my life. Because it's been very, I don't want to say hard. It hasn't been hard for me, but I have not allowed myself to want a lot of things. Because a part of me didn't believe that it was possible. I didn't grow up with a lot of money. So my parents didn't have a lot of money. So we were very limited in what we could allow ourselves and what was possible in that way. And so I just never believed that I could have the resources or the amount of money that I wanted for the things that I wanted, for just as an example. And if I were to dream big, it feels so far-fetched. Oh, you think you're special. You think you can really do it. Anytime I would dream big, I would squash it down. There were voices in my head that would just squash it down. And there's also another voice that's saying that you should just be happy with what you have. So many people in the world don't even have what you have. Don't you dare ask for more. Just settle for what you've got. You should be happy just with what you've got. So this is actually I'm realizing this is a very important exercise for me to do, to really let go of the shame of wanting and the shame of asking for it, and the guilt as well of how dare you ask for this? If you ask for this, if you get this, that means that someone else doesn't get it. Yeah, I think it's just an important exercise because it's not about saying things out loud so that I will receive them. That's not what this exercise is about. This is not about me being like, I'm asking for what I want and I'm gonna get it. That's not what it's about. It is literally about me rewiring my brain to let my system, my whole entire system, my nervous system and my brain and everything know that it's really okay to want things, to ask for things, to dream big and have fun with it. That's what I think this is doing for me. So that's what I'm saying yes to wanting things, allowing myself to want things and express those wants.
I love that. It makes me think, I mean, it's so empowering, and it feels like it's one of those things that could become jealousy, but instead you're elevating it and making it, oh, I see what that person has. And that inspires me to, I'll also want it and also ask for it. And I know that it coming into it, instead of a scarcity mentality of jealousy of that person has that, so therefore I won't be able to have it. Like that's jeopardizing to me because there's a scarcity in the world. Instead, it's coming in with an abundance mentality of being like, oh, that person has that. I love that. I want that too. Yeah, that's really beautiful. It also just reminds me of this story. I'm reading this book, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Highly recommend. Love. And he talks about this woman who I believe is his mother, but don't quote me. I can't remember. Some woman he talks about who grew up in the Depression era in the United States and was taught similarly that she shouldn't want anything. They never received gifts. They just grew up with absolutely nothing, like just one pair of shoes for 10 years. And she was a child, and her sister had her appendix burst or something. And she had to go to the hospital and have her appendix removed. And so her sister received this little change purse as a gift from the family to make her feel better in the hospital as she was recuperating. And she got so jealous. The woman in the story is the sister, and she got jealous of it. And she said to her older siblings, I really want that thing that my sister has. And the siblings were like, no, you can't want that. Do you know how hard mom and dad work to like just put bread on the table? And she still wanted it. Like she still really wanted it, but she was told, no, not only can you not want it, but you can't express wanting it. So it's silencing. Like she just literally couldn't even communicate how she felt. Anyway, she winds up pretending to have an appendix problem as well, goes to the doctor, doesn't find anything. So she's, I'm having pain in my stomach and there's no issue. They do all these tests. There's no issue. It continues to go on though. She keeps saying she's in pain. She's in all this. Ultimately, they wound up doing unnecessary surgery on her and removing her perfectly fine appendix. She goes through the whole thing and they give her this little change purse at the end in the recovery room. As I know, isn't that crazy? But it gets worse. She then was, I don't know why she couldn't speak properly, if there was something going on, if they had given her drugs or something. And she was so proud of this change purse. And she's there holding it to her heart. And she's so glad that she had it. And she says, she's grateful that she went through everything she went through. She's fine with the surgery because she got this thing she wanted, right? And then this nurse comes in and she holds up her change purse to show the nurse, to be like, look at what I got. But she wasn't able to express it like verbally for whatever reason. Again, I think they were like drugs or whatever to numb her. And the nurse sees that she's holding up this change purse and goes, oh, is that a gift for me? How nice. And she takes the change purse, and that's it. And it's gone. And all of that, she went through this surgery, this unnecessary surgery to not get anything, you know what I mean? To just lose the thing. Anyway, it's something this woman carried with her. She was a child, maybe she's 10 years old or so. And she's at this point in her 70s, 80s, 90s. And she shares this with her son, who I believe is the author of the book. And the son was like, wow, I understand my mother on such a deeper level now. I understand why she can't just ask me for what she wants. She can't just communicate fully with me. She has to talk around the issue. It's a really, first off, really brilliant book. Highly recommend. But the story just reminds me of the story of you're allowed to ask for what you want and trust that the universe will give it to you if it's supposed to. But if it's in your cards, but you don't have to stifle yourself. You don't have to stop yourself. And I love this practice that you're doing for yourself. Yes, I love that pillow. I want that pillow. Like one of those, please.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like any tiny thing. Like even if it's a change purse or if it's like a I'm seeing someone doing incredible things. And I'm like, yes, I want to be like this person. Like I'm doing it with every single thing that I see, hear, or experience. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Okay, I'm going to have to take my dog out to pee.
Sounds good.
Are you coming? Yeah, I know I'm coming. Thank you. This was lovely. And I will see you next week.
Bye.
That concludes this week's episode of The Weekly Yes. You will find us on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. And you can follow us on Instagram as well at The Weekly Yes. Keep saying yes, and we'll see you next week.